Talk about the brave and stunning individuals who are fleeing Ukraine who are men. Biological men.
Biological men.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Start this off. How a transgender Ukrainian man escaped Russia's invasion. I painted my nails violet and wore mum's shirt to look more girly. This is a man. Or at least that's what they're attempting. Right. This one, obviously not, is a biological woman.
Yeah, I was going to say, the confusing thing is whenever they say transgender and then afterwards, I don't know exactly which one people are referring to because it gets confusing, but not surprised.
But there are both types, and we'll get into it.
Oh, okay, all right.
Sorry, there's a lot to read. So Andriy, not his real name, thought the major change to his life would be his gender transition from female to male. But when the Russian bombs started to fall on Kiev, he was forced to embark on another journey, from a citizen of Ukraine to a refugee. Like, okay. Yes, well, war is more important than your gender identity.
I really feel
for establishing that.
I really feel bad for they're just sort of like, oh no, I thought I had enough to deal with. Now there's war.
Yeah. As Andriy and his mother took cover in Kiev's subway station for 3 nights, he had the first thought of a war refugee. Where will I live? Where will I go to?
Where will I get my hormones?
But then as a transgender man, a man assigned at a female at birth, I don't want to use that language, but that's how they've written it. Different questions raced through his mind about leaving his homeland. Andriy is a pseudonym used to protect his identity. They say again, for some reason, as if they didn't say that in the opening line, but whatever. He reads the news that all men in Ukraine, ages 18 to 60, were not permitted to leave the country and were obliged to serve in the military. So as a patriotic individual, Andriy, saying he is a man, a full man, decided to stay and fight in the Ukraine. No, he didn't. No.
Prime masculine behavior.
Yeah. Really wants to be a man, but then the war broke out and started making pigtails.
All of a sudden, the obligations surrounding masculinity arise. Oh, no thank you. No. So honestly, I've seen so many people I know who are feminists who, as soon as the word started going around of, oh, what if it escalates? What if it's World War III?
Leave me alone.
Yeah, but how many sandwiches would you like, honey?
Yeah. He told Insider he needed to stay with his mother and care for her. No way she could do that on her own. No way that there's systems for that thing. Leaving her to flee Ukraine alone just wasn't an option. Also wasn't legal if you actually were a man.
I'm a very dedicated son. I'm just doing this for my mother, I swear.
There's no biological men who could have done this because they had to stay and fight. Coupled with the dangers that come with being transgender and forced into a military draft in an active war zone, he felt he only had one option. I love that. It's just like, well, I may die, but I also might be transgender and therefore other things. It's like, yep.
What if they oppress me? What if they oppress me on the front lines?
Also, the women in the war, not doing too well either. Well, I suppose you're also one of them. On March 3rd, he got in touch via Instagram with a London-based activist and model, Rain Dubruski, presumably Polish, who is leading an effort to get trans people and other vulnerable people, including people who are older and have a disability, out of Ukraine.
Why don't you want these patriots fighting for their country?
Well, the men, at least. Well, you don't want the men doing it. Well, men. In the messages between Andriy and Polish man, who is also trans, the conversation quickly turned from hello to Andriy's autonomy. Yeah, of course it did. Quote, have you had top or bottom surgery? Mr. Poland said. Andriy hadn't. They also needed to know if Andriy had his old female passport, because all of a sudden that was very important to him, that he was female on his passport. Him.
I'm really sorry, this might be horrible news, but you're going to have to misgender yourself for a few days.
Mr. Poland told Andriy he needed to hide his ID, to tell border enforcement later that he lost it, and go as soon as possible. After several hours, they found a place on a train bound for the border with Poland, but first came the dreaded document check.
Dun, dun, dun.
Quote, I was so scared. My head was messed up. And I was so tired. Thankfully, Mum told them that we'd lost all the documents and only have a copy of my female ID. The conductor looked at me closely, asked me to take off my hat, and then she let us on the train, presumably going, I don't get paid enough.
Presumably wondering what the big deal was in the first place.
Yeah. They were then on their way to the crossing at Poland word I can't say, and Andriy had to revert to being a person that he was not. How? How, if he is a man, can he revert to being a woman? Remember, this is your logic. He's definitely a man because he says he's a man.
Trans men are men, after all. There are no distinctions between these categories, Callum.
That's the ideology, right? It's just, again, reality, butting up into progressive ideology. A shadow of the person that he was before. A painful, gender dysphoria-inducing process. I decided I had to whisper so that nobody would notice my deep voice, Andriy said. I even painted my nails violet and wore mum's shirt to look more girly. I love that they're explaining it as this is a painful, gender dysphoria-inducing process.
Oh, I've got to paint my nails and wear girly shirts.
Yeah, but what would have been worse? Signing up in the war, maybe? Like all of the men have to do? Actual men?
I think you're really discounting the psychological trauma that Andriy is going through here.
We decided I had to whisper so that nobody would hear. Sorry, I read that. If a border force saw him as a man, he would have to stay in Ukraine and not care for his mother, Mr. Poland said. Yes, like all the other men who have had to have their mothers or wives or families leave them.
I don't even know if I recognise the legitimacy of that argument in the first place.
It's bollocks.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, because I mean we've had people we've spoken to, Vlado, if you're watching, and he's on the Slovakian border doing border guard, and he's seeing families turn up, the entire family, and the men have kept their family in the dark. They've all gone over. He's like, yeah, I gotta stay. So the wife and the kids are now in Slovakia, crying their eyes out, and the man's like, well, no, I've got to stay. That's the law. Sometimes it's a patriotic duty. It's what it is. Whereas this man, who you are to believe is a man, is just like, well, no, I can't. It's just like, I'm sorry, no, I don't buy it. It's a bollocks argument. It was very painful for him to dress up as a woman. Oh, I'm sure it bloody well was. Wear his mother's makeup, again, infuriating, not like getting shot, but it would have been more painful to leave her in a foreign country to start life over again. Yeah, just like all the men have to do with their families or mothers or all the rest. Doesn't care, doesn't give a
I think actually the thing that I was saying is the argument that I don't understand. Correct me if I'm wrong, you're in touch with these people, but is the Ukrainian government explicitly stating transgender men also get the conscript?
The East doesn't discuss this crap.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It doesn't come up. Because why would they? They're not the West.
Yeah.
Ukraine ranks 39th out of 49 countries for the treatment of LGBTQ rights, according to ILGA Europe, an advocacy group for lesbian, gay, blah, 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 blah. So Ukraine also not great already on this front. So the idea that this is, they argue that her going to Poland would be worse, and therefore it's horrible for her to be in Poland as well. Where was her being in Poland?
If Andriy showed up to the draft, would they not just get laughed off by all the soldiers?
Depends how desperate they are, I suppose.
I suppose so, but
they do accept women actually. So
okay, well,
the organization Transgender Europe said, if recruited, trans people face a higher risk of harassment and violence. Access to food banks, shelters, and other essentials often require a valid ID card. Mismatched ID documents can lead to denial of service, besides suspicion of fraud, ridicule, harassment, and violence. What about death at the hands of Russians? No, I mean, again, I'm not unsympathetic to the idea that you're a refugee. There are all these problems. Right, okay. But then try to claim that I am suffering unduly because I'm running away to Poland. I am worse off than the men who have to go and die in a draft. Not buying it.
It hurts me so much to run away.
But it's also just, I love these moments in history, for if no other reason. They're horrific, but like with Afghanistan and the collapse there, you see what's important, what's real. And the ideology is never real. Reality can't be silenced. Let's go to the next link here, because there's more of this. So this is, I believe, the argument here. After fleeing Ukraine, LGBTQ refugees search for safety in countries hostile to their rights. I know they fled a war. I remember Ukraine was an asshole for these rights already. I'm
sorry, Mike.
Me. I think, remember the last section, they were like, yeah, Ukraine's terrible for LGBT rights. Yeah, apparently Poland's even worse. Oh, no. Oh, how terrible. At least there's not a war in Poland.
I guess I'll have to keep going west, further and further west, until I find myself in some progressive haven.
Vitili, who identifies as a trans masculine, I don't know why they wrote it like that, but whatever, is one of the few trans Ukrainians who has been able to have his gender markers changed on legal documents. Vitili says he was issued a military ID when he transitioned more than a decade ago that declared him unfit for military service because he had to receive a psychiatric diagnosis as part of his transition. Presumably that's all gone now because they're reporting it on their mum. Vitili says he showed the document to border agents and he and his wife were allowed to drive through the checkpoint. So, this is again, presumably a woman.
I do find
claiming they're a man who leaves.
I do find that very interesting, though, how it gives them a free get out of conscription free, which is that I'm mentally ill, mate. You can't get me.
But that was during the non-war period as well.
Oh, yeah.
Now I think they take anyone. I mean, they take.
I would imagine so. Empty out the loony bins, boys.
And then they tries to play up a thing here saying, but leaving Ukraine didn't assure his safety. Vitili and hundreds of thousands of other Ukrainian refugees have fled Eastern Europe countries for Hungary or Poland. Oh, how terrible. Which have cracked down on LGBTQ rights in recent years. Oh no, LGBTQ people face discrimination in Ukraine as well. Yes. Again, look at the non-story here. They've gone from Ukraine to Poland. What was the drop in LGBTQ rights, do you think?
School teachers can't indoctrinate children.
They can't do that in Ukraine either.
Well,
So nothing.
yeah.
Like, this is what I mean. It's just like, it's drawn up more. Isn't it terrible? Again, the Western media just endlessly focuses on identity politics.
That's just it's very telling though, isn't it? How the way they determine whether LGBTQ blah 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 people have rights or not is whether we're allowed to brainwash your children.
Yeah. Some LGBTQ people, particularly trans women, cannot leave even if they want to. Why is that?
I wonder why.
Why is that? It's because they're men. You know it. Stop lying. Trans people in Ukraine can legally change their gender, but the process is complex and erroneous, and many people have not yet completed it and are effectively trapped, activists say. Oh no. They're trapped in the country and can't leave. You know who else can't leave? The country. And are trapped. The men of Ukraine. You're not special. You are in exactly the same situation as half the population.
These people, I assume these activists all probably have Ukrainian flags in their bio, so why would you want to prevent these people from being able to fight for their glorious nation?
Don't you want to fight for trans rights? No,
Yeah.
they want to leave. Hungary has a position on this. They decided to say no one really wants to come to Hungary.
Please leave us alone.
I'm not kidding. That's the quote. No one really wants to come to Hungary.
I'm sorry, it's like they rock up to the border. There's like you can see flashing lights, people having parties over the wall. They knock on the door. It's like nobody's in.
That's a representative of Orban's government there saying that because they're saying that everyone who comes to the country wants to get through as quickly as possible. Interesting. Kind of a dab in your own nation there, but whatever. So,
If it keeps people out, man.
but speaking of Ukrainian refugees, so let's think of the actual refugees, or at least the women who went in and whatnot. One of them made it to Germany.
Okay.
How do you think that went? Yeah. German news reporting here. Ukrainian woman 18 raped by 2 refugees. March 6, an 18-year-old Ukrainian woman is said to have been a victim of sexual assault on a hotel ship Oscar Wilde, which is currently also being used as accommodation for refugees from Ukraine. She is said to have been abused by 2 men from Iraq and Nigeria, 37 and 26, those two.
I could have guessed, to be perfectly honest.
Fighting-age men.
Mm.
Both are said to have Ukrainian citizenship. The police have launched investigations into a suspicion of rape, among other things. It should also be clarified how the two of the perpetrators exactly got hold of a Ukrainian passport, the Germans write. Yeah, how exactly? How exactly the 2 guys, one from Nigeria, one from Iraq, get a Ukrainian passport? Also, if they are Ukrainian,
Why aren't they fighting?
men can't leave.
Yeah.
At least that's what we're told.
I'm really starting to feel like these documents they have aren't legitimate.
No. And this is a long-standing problem. Again, Vlados has told us the story of them going around at the Slovakian border. This is long before the war. And Slovakian border is the border with the EU to the outside world there, to Ukraine. And in winter, the people smugglers would come and get these African lads that they picked up, smuggle them all the way to Ukraine, drive up the car, and be like, yeah, go and run to the border, lads. And the guys would get out in their shorts, run to the border, they'd freeze to death. And the Slovakian border guard's job was to go out and pick up these corpses and then get rid of them.
God, that's just awful from start to finish.
Yeah, but that's the situation in which there is people smuggling there for a long-ass time. So these guys, I'm going to say, are part of that. And as John is pointing out rightly, you also can't have dual citizenship. So
Oh, really?
they're clearly chancers who got through on that. And then immediately when they met a refugee, raped her. That's the accusation. There's also the other retarded conversation we had around this, that no one has learned anything from the previous horror show that was 2016. And we'll go through this very quickly. So this is Andrew Adonis, Lord Adonis, you may remember, big EU guy, saying Ukrainian refugees accepted as of yesterday, 1.5 million in Poland, Britain 1,300. Who's doing their bit?
Wow, it's almost like Poland's right next door.
Dunce. Let's go to the next one. Douglas Murray's response. Number 1, have you seen a map? Ever? In your life? Number 2, why do EU files like Poland now?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, just love Poland. We go to the next one. There's other retarded conversations in the UK. You can see LBC having Amnesty International on to say, if Moldova can receive 200,000 people, how many can the UK receive?
As many as we say.
It's called a map. M-A-P, type it in, not the other type. Don't do the capitals. When you type in Google Maps, any map will service will do. Let's go to the next one so you can see the map.
If they want to ask you the question, the answer could be 0. It won't be 0 because I know who we've got in charge, but it could be.
But it's again, retards. Look at the map. There's Ukraine. There's Moldova. Oh, look, big old bordery boo.
awful,
border Ukraine.
awful lot of safe countries between here and Ukraine.
Well, no, not really. There is one, which is the EU, because that is how this is treated.
Yeah,
And yes,
true.
first safe country. If you get to Poland, Slovakia, that is the EU. Therefore, you're allowed to move around all of that. That's EU's rules, not ours. And then we're not part of that.
Thank God.
And therefore, we don't have to have any obligation under this. It's just, do we want to? It's our borders, our choice. And the idea that, Moldova has 200,000. I wonder why that is. It's because it borders I don't know why I'm talking to these people. These people are retarded. I don't know what I
They
want to
just
try.
don't get it. I mean, where else are they going to go? They're going to go to Russia.
Yeah. Let's go to the next one so we can see this reported by a Labour MP saying, how dare the EU have no checks and the UK have checks for who's coming? Well, that would be because the EU is the first safe country. Therefore, Ukrainians have a right to claim asylum there. Easy as. UK's not part of that. Don't know why I'm trying again. These people don't have any brain. Let's move to the next one, in which we can see the media ramping up this nonsense as well. You can see the BBC saying, does the Home Office need to get a grip? Because they're not just getting rid of all of the checks. Yeah, go to the next one.
Why does the Home Office need to... No open borders, Home Office.
Don't you support progressivism? Let's go to the next one so we can see the launch of the sponsorship scheme. And this is largely been over on the podcast, so I won't do it again. But it's just the fact that there were a whole bunch of checks for visas, and then they were like, but what if a person in the UK just has a house and wants to let someone in? In which case, we'll do some security checks, and that's it.
Yeah, there
Nothing
you go.
else.
And the person who wrote this article, if you're more than happy to accept as many Ukrainian refugees into your home as you can fit, then you're welcome to, as long as they pass those checks.
Also, each household will be getting £350 a month, tax-free, just for the rent. And on top of that, they'll say local authorities will receive £10,500 extra funding per refugee. Okay, great. We could have sent all this money to Poland. Could have helped Poland quite a lot. They need the cash. They're dealing with humanitarian crisis.
I don't know if you saw those figures, but they've got at least over 1 million more than we do.
If we pay Poland 10 grand per refugee, I mean, we go bankrupt tomorrow. But that's the thing. If we paid them 100 grand, and therefore they could help a lot more people than 10.
Yeah.
No, instead we'll spend it as inefficiently as possible. Okay, so no lessons were learned in 2016. We learned nothing. Absolutely nothing. Good to know. There's also cuck MPs who learned nothing. The government has faced pressure, including from Conservative MPs, to issue emergency visas or lift visa requirements altogether for Ukrainian refugees. Home Secretary Priti Patel has ruled this out, insisting that security and biometric checks were vital to keep British citizens safe. I mean, Priti Patel doesn't get much praise these days, but at least she's got some sense left in her. The government also says that some people in Calais are claiming to be Ukrainians and have false documents. Again,
Big
reason
shock.
for checks. You can't just be like, oh, well, there's a crisis, so F borders and S.
Did they come to Calais via Germany?
Yeah. One of them's from Nigeria, one of them's...
Oh, what a surprise.
Yeah, and then we'll go to the next one, because I saw the left mostly picking up this furore, and then The Guardian all of a sudden figuring out that actually open borders is a terrible idea, because, oh, wait, we're going to lead to slavery again?
Wait, they've
Yes, people smugglers.
only just figured this out.
Yes. Did you know that people smuggling could lead to
Who do you
modern-day
think's
slavery?
been carrying them over on dinghies?
Yeah, and I'll end this off with, instead of helping Poland and sending that money to Poland to help them, we're not really, I don't know what we're doing in that regard, but the EU certainly isn't helping either. They're trying to sanction Poland. So as you can see here, this is the article, the EU decides to sanction Poland. As per European Union, Poland and Hungary are not respecting these common EU laws and are accused of curbing the freedom of courts, media, and academics. In addition, they're accused of depriving LGBTQ plus people and migrants of their rights. And therefore, the EU decided to sanction Poland and take away a load of money. Right now.
What?
Of all the times to do it.
There's nothing you can say to that, is there? There really isn't much you can say to that other than you absolute
refugees.
You absolute retard.
Also, no money to Poland to deal with refugees.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go to the
They'll
next
have
one.
to come to Germany, which has been working out so well so far.
Yeah, goes perfectly. There's another headline here in which some European outlet is being like, yeah, the Visegrad group, so Poland, Hungary, and whatnot, they're trying to U-turn on refugees. They're welcoming refugees now. Yes, there's not a U-turn. There weren't any refugees before. There were chances. We know. Because we just have the crime statistics if nothing else. Also the fact that the EU themselves said half of them have no more right to be in Europe than anyone else. And exactly 0 of them have any more right to be here, well, on the basis of running through multiple safe countries. You go to the first safe country and apply there. That's the system. Also, we can just see the numbers. Let's go to the next one. There we go. Where are they going? They go to Poland.
They're going exactly where you would expect them to.
Who needs the help? Poland. Right, quickly, sanction Poland. Not Russia. Won't sanction the Russian, we'll sanction the Polish.
Wait, no, we'll keep sanctioning Russia and increasing our own prices for things.
Oh,
but
no.
also...
The EU didn't sanction Russia.
Oh, yeah.
They were asked to sanction on gas and oil to try and stand in solidarity with Ukraine, and they said, No.
No.
But we will sanction Poland.
Also, people taking Ukrainians. But are the EU on Russia's side? Because they're kind of acting like it.
Very much looking like it. But anyway, that's the story with all that. If you appreciate that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as this premium hangout that Josh and Thomas did together, this one on should capitalism be restricted because can free markets and morality coexist? If you want to follow Thomas, you can also follow him at Getter at Thomas Dowling on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.